Hello and welcome to this video tutorial brought to you by tutvid.com. I hope you're ready to sit down and do a little bit of action scripting with me. We're going to go ahead and create this entire gallery, which is going to load in a series of images from scratch using Flash and Actionscript 3. That's kind of important because if you don't have Flash CS3 or Flash CS4, you're not going to be able to follow this tutorial. You need CS3 or newer in order to have Actionscript 3. So, with that in mind, I just want to give you a little bit of what my plan is here with this series of gallery tutorials. We're going to start with the base here. We're just going to be loading in the images and creating a next and previous button setup for this gallery. And my plan is, in a little bit, I'll put out another video on maybe, how to externally preload and then, converting it to XML and, how to load the XML. And we'll go on and on and on and keep making the gallery better and better and better and better and exploring all kinds of cool Actionscript 3 things along the way. So here's the gallery. Let me show it to you. I do want to just let you know, though, it is the same size as the screen that I'm recording on, so a little bit of it runs off screen. So the image might not quite look centered. But basically we have previous and next button. Next is just going to bring us to the next, and previous brings us back, and it just goes around and around and around. And it's loading all of these from just a folder of images I have sitting on my hard drive, and it would work the same if you had a folder of images sitting there on your web server. So let's get started. We're going to go File, New, and we're going to choose New Flash File, Actionscript 3.0. I'm going to hit OK. And the first thing I want to do is change that size. I'm going to edit the size, dimensions, 1280 by 720, and hit OK. And we're basically set here. I'm going to zoom out just so you can see the full dimensions of my document, but note I am at 50% here. That's just the viewing size. Alright, what I want to do is select my layer 1 here and just rename it AS for Actionscript. We're going to have one layer here just for our Actionscript. And, well, before we get started, also, let me just show you. I have this folder with all of my images in it. And here, this is kind of important. Number one, I resized them in Photoshop so they would fit into my Flash document. I made sure of that with a max height of about 620 pixels. I just have all of these photographs sitting here, and here is my FLA. Well, I'm going to be saving my FLA into this folder. This is the one that I just did a moment ago. So in order to do that, we want to go ahead and save our Flash file. You need to do this because your Flash file needs kind of a point of reference. It needs to know where it stands in reference to these files that we're going to be referencing. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and well, here we are, right in the folder. And I'm just going to save this as external gallery rect, which for me would just basically say this is the one you made while you were recording. And I'm going to save it right in there. I'm going to hop back into the bridge, and it should be here now. There it is. External gallery rect. There's no SWF yet because we have not exported it yet. But here's the important thing. All of these images are right here within the same folder. So within Actionscript, I know how I'm referencing these images. They're in the same folder as my Flash document. If they were in a folder, let's say called Images, I would first have to reference images, and I'll point it out in just a second when we go ahead and start loading these guys in here. So what I want to do is select my AS layer, choose that first keyframe, go Window, Actions, and here we are. I've got my Actions panel nice and large because we're not really going to be doing any kind of drawing except adding the next and previous buttons, which are really just going to be components. Alright, we're going to start out by creating 3 variables, well actually really 4 variables. The first variable, we're going to type var, we're going to say imgs, and this is of the number data type, and it is equal to 7. Why is it equal to 7? Because I have 7 images here. So I've got 1 through 7. Alright, so this is going to change if you want to upload, let's say, 20 images with your gallery. You're just going to need to change this number to 20. That's just going to be our point of reference as far as figuring out how many images we have to grab. Next up, we have var img num. This is also of the number data type and is equal to 1. This is going to be the number image that's loaded right now. The first image we want to load is going to be 1.jpg. Now we're going to specify that in just a second, and I'll show you how. The third variable is going to be our actual loader, img loader, and it is of the loader data type, and we're going to say it is equal to a new instance of the loader class. Open and close parentheses, semicolon. Now, the the fourth variable is going to be a URL request. We're going to say var img request, and it is equal to URL request. That's the data type is URL request, and it's equal to a new instance of the URL request class. And here we want to say open parenthesis, and the URL that we want to load is imgnum. Remember, that's the number of the image we want to load. However, we need to add that .jpg onto the end, which is a string. So we're going to say plus, open and close quotes, and inside of that we're going to say .jpg. So the way Actionscript is going to read this, right now it's going to say 1.jpg. If this number changes to, let's say, 5, this is going to read 5.jpg. We're going to leave it as 1. And that's how that's going to work. Close, parenthesis, semicolon. Now it's going to start getting fun. We're going to go ahead and actually load our image and then place it on the stage. Really easy, 2 simple lines of code. We need to basically yell out and say, hey, image loader, this guy right here. Okay, remember we created that loader, but we never actually loaded anything with it. We're going to say, hey, image loader, we want you to go ahead, .load, we want you to go ahead and load, open parenthesis, img request. And basically all this means is our loader is going to load whatever is contained within the variable img request. Now our variable img request is grabbing the URL 1.jpg. Alright, so that's going to load. Now all we have to do is add this to the stage. So we're going to say add child, open parenthesis, img loader. Remember, the loader is actually what is going to be grabbing the image, not the request. The request holds your URL. Alright, so you want to add the img loader to the stage and place your semicolon at the end there. We're going to save our file, and I'm just going to hit Command or Control Enter, and voila, our first image loads in. By default, your image smashes itself into the top left corner with an X and Y positioning of 0. So that's what's happening there. Our next step is going to be centering this image, and really centering this image regardless of the image size. We need Flash to automatically grab both the stage size and our image size and take care of doing the dividing or the subtracting and all of that good stuff. So what we need to do is somehow access the width and height values of the image that's being loaded right now. So we're going to say img loader. We need to add an event listener to this. However, we don't just want to add it directly to the image loader. We want to add it to the content. We need to say dot content loader info dot add event listener. And then here we want to say event dot, make sure you spell event correctly, event dot, you may think complete, because yeah, once the event's complete, but the problem with that is by the time it's complete, it's already been placed and all of that. We want to get this info as soon that this millisecond, you humanly can't even feel it or see it or experience it because it's that fast. But the computer obviously is way faster than you or I. So event.init, which basically is going to say, look, go ahead and do this as soon as we can access information about this file. That millisecond, even faster than a millisecond that we can do that, go ahead and execute this function. And I'm going to call this function get dim f. The reason I'm calling it get dim f is because it means get dimensions. We want to get the dimensions of our image that's being loaded. So we now need to create that function. So we're going to say function get dim f. It is an event, colon, event with a capital E, close parenthesis, colon, void, open curly bracket, enter return twice, close curly bracket, and the up arrow key. Now, inside of here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to see what kind of information I can get. So I'm going to say trace. I'm going to put an open and close parenthesis and a semicolon. And inside of here, I'm going to say img loader dot width. Okay, let's just see if we can even get the width of this image. All right, I'm going to save it. I'm going to test it. Output panel pops up and tells me this image is 479 pixels wide. Great, that's awesome. We're getting the info we need. All right, let's try changing this. Well, actually, you know what? Let's just go plus. And I'm going to put a couple quotes in here. I'm going to say space, hyphen, hyphen, space, just to space these guys out so we can actually read it. If I didn't put that in there, these would just be two numbers mashed together. I wouldn't be able to tell what's what. I'm going to say img loader dot height. All right, let's check this out. And it should give us the width and height. And there we go. 479. You see we got our space, 2 hyphen, space, and 620. So this image is 479 by 620. That's awesome. That's information that we know we're able to get here with this function. So now that we know that we're able to get the width and height of our image that's being loaded, let's use that data. we're going to create two variables here. The first one is going to be called imgx, and it is a number, and it is going to be equal to, I'm going to open up a parenthesis right here, and I'm going to say stage.stage width minus img loader, remember we know we can get this now, dot width, close off the parentheses, and then divide that whole mess by 2. So basically what it's doing is it's going to grab the 1280, and it's going to subtract whatever it was, 620 from that, and then divide that remaining number by 2, which is going to give us a center. Throw a semicolon to the end of that. We're going to go ahead and create the imgy variable. Again, it's a number data type, and it is equal to, open parenthesis, stage height. And just like we learned in math way back in grade school, or maybe in grade school for some of us, we're putting this whole thing in parentheses so Flash processes this mathematical equation before it goes ahead and divides. It would be disastrous if Flash started dividing numbers. We wouldn't get the right number at all. So we're going to say stage.height minus img loader dot height, close parenthesis, and we're going to divide that whole mess by 2 as well. Throw the semicolon to the end. And then here what we're going to do is we're going to talk directly to image loader. We're going to say, all right, image loader, you're coming in, you're loading. We want your x, this is that top corner, to be equal to imgx. So whatever number imgx ends up getting out of this equation, that's what the x of img loader is going to be. And that should be horizontally center. And then we're going to say img loader dot y, so we're going to place it along the y-axis as well, is just equal to imgy. Place that semicolon, and let's check it out. I'm going to test the movie. Bam! Image centered. Now, it might not look quite centered to you, again, because the Flash document cuts off. We've got this whole header bar up here, so there's still extra document down below. But it is centered, and let me just give you a quick test. We're going to change imgnum to, let's grab image 5, I believe, is a landscape orientation. I'm going to save my document and test that. And you can see, not only does it load another image when imgnum is changed, but that too has been centered. Great, this is awesome news. We know that we can load an image in and dynamically center it in our Flash document. So next up, we want to go ahead and place our next and previous buttons on stage and begin coding them so we can, in fact, go to the next and previous buttons. I'm going to hit F9 to make my actions panel go away and create a new layer. I'm going to name it buttons. I'm going to drag it below the AS layer. And I'm actually just going to, I'm going to get lazy here, and I'm just going to grab a component. So by the way, I just want window components. And it may take a minute for this to load. There's a lot of stuff that could be loading for you. We're going to drag out a button. I'm just going to drag one button out, and I'm actually going to make this bigger. So I'm going to click Q, which is my sort of free transform tool here. I'm going to make it bigger. There we go. And I'm going to put these, actually I'm going to put these up on the top just so I know you guys can see them. And I'm going to hold down my Alt or Option key and drag it straight across to the other side of the document. And now, obviously, right now, these buttons just say label. So we need to go Window Component Inspector. And I'm going to select this guy. And here on Label, we're going to change the label to Previous Button. No, not Previous Button. Previous Image. What am I thinking? There we go. Previous Image. Let's go grab the other guy. There he is. Select him. And this one will be Next Image. Beautiful. Now that we've done that, we can close up the component inspector. We need to give each of these buttons instance names, and we'll be ready to hop back into ActionScript, and we will be set, we'll be done with the visual editing part of this in Flash. We'll just be coding from here on out. So we're going to set the instance name to next btn underscore MC, and that btn has a capital B. I'm going to go do the same thing for previous, but I'm going to say prev, P-R-E-V, as in previous, btn underscore MC. Okay, we've got our instance name set. We're ready to rock. Back into ActionScript we go. So select that ActionScript layer, hit F9, and here we are. Great. So we want to add a couple lines here, and the first thing I want to do is just go next btn underscore MC dot button mode space equals space true, and prev btn underscore MC dot button mode space equals space true. That's going to really allow users to know that this is a button they're hovering over. If you're not familiar with button mode, it just gives the operating system's little clicker that's going to say, hey, this is a link you're hovering over, something you can click that you're hovering over. Now, the fact that it says next and previous image should be an indication enough, but you can never give too much indication. So we're going to say next btn underscore MC dot add event listener. We need to add an event listener to this button, and we're listening for a mouse event in this case, and the mouse event we're listening for is a click. That's click in all caps, comma, and the function we're going to execute is simply next f, close parenthesis, semicolon. We need to create an event listener for the previous button as well, so prev button underscore mc dot add event listener. Again, listening for that mouse event, dot click. And we're just going to execute the function prev f. Now, you know as well as I do, we have not created these functions, so let's go ahead and create them. Start by typing function. I forgot for a second there how to spell function, which is terrible. Next f, and it is an event, a mouse event, close parenthesis, colon, void, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, up arrow key. And in here I'm going to type the word trace, and we're just going to perform a simple trace statement. We're just going to say next image. There we go. And I'm going to copy this entire function and enter return a couple times, paste it right here. And I'm just going to change the name to prevf and change next here to previous. So when we select the next image button, the output window should pop up and say, hey, next image. If we select the previous image button, it should pop up, bam, hey, previous image. All right, let's see what happens. We're going to save it, preview, control enter, command enter. And hey, look, we're still loading image 4 here. We'll have to change that in Actionscript. But when I select next image, the output panel pops up and says, hey, next image. Previous, the reason it disappeared is back there. There's previous image. So I can select previous image a few times. It's going to keep doing it. Next image. And there's next image. I did that off screen. Next image. Select it a couple times. All right, great. So we know that that definitely works, and our event listeners are doing good. I'm going to move back up to the top, and I like image 1 a little bit better, so I'm going to load image 1. All right, so now that we've done that, we're ready to move on. What we need to do is change imgnum right here when a user clicks on next image. Essentially, we want it to go from loading 1.jpg to 2.jpg. Okay, so we really need to tell this, hey, look, change imgnum. We just add 1 to it if somebody hits the next. It should be that simple. So we actually need to create a simple if statement here, because we only want it to add 1 as long as the number is less than our total number of images. If it's equal to our total number of images, we want it to go back to image 1. So let's say somebody keeps clicking, it gets up to where imgnum equals 7, 7.jpg loads. There's no 8.jpg. So when somebody hits next image again, we want this to automatically set imgnum back to 1, so therefore it's going to look like it just loops right back to 1 and keeps doing its thing, and then it's going to keep adding until it gets back to 7. So a simple if-else statement is just what the doctor ordered. We're going to delete this, and we're going to say if, open parenthesis, imgnum is less than imgs. Now, you may think, why not just say, hey, if imgnum is less than 7, just do that. It'd be a lot simpler. You don't have to deal with this variable nonsense. Well, here's exactly why I'm doing this. And I'm stopping right in the middle of writing this if statement to explain this, but just don't get lost here. We'll get back to this in just a second. The reason I'm using a variable is because if you're not using 7 images and you haven't specified a variable at the top, it's not that the gallery is not going to work, but you're going to have to go through everywhere where it refers to the total number of images. And let's say I did say less than 7. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but if you decided you wanted to work with 20 images, you would have to come down to here and change this to 20, and we're going to be referencing imgs a couple more times. You have to change each of them to 20. So it's just a lot easier if you have imgs, and then just once come into your document, and if you have 20 images, punch in the number 20, and you're done. The gallery is just going to work. It'll be that easy. It'll be that easy for you, or if you're creating the gallery for someone else, it's going to be that easy for them. All right, so we're going to create open curly bracket, enter return twice, close curly bracket. And inside of here, we want to first and foremost remove the child that is on stage, which is that img loader. And we want to go ahead and say imgnum plus plus semicolon, which is just going to take imgnum and add 1 to it. All right, then down here, right after our first curly bracket, we're going to hit space and type else, open curly bracket, enter return twice, close curly bracket, else, img num, space equals space, 1. So if the image number is not less than the total number of images, which basically means if it's equal to that total number of images, we want it to go back and equal 1 again. So this function is basically just getting us a new number to load, which is exactly what we needed to do. Let's give it a quick test drive, and I know there's going to be a problem already, but we're going to go ahead and just see what it does, and you'll kind of see what this whole remove child thing's about. So save it, and let's give it a quick test here. Alrighty, we've got our gallery. I'm going to hit now. If we hit the previous button, the output panel is still going to pop up, and that's going to be just worthless for us. But if I hit next image, our image disappears. It goes away. That's great because the problem is you're going to have different sized images, and you don't want your images to just start stacking one on top of another. It would just look terrible. So the first thing you need to do is remove your image, and then you should have another one that loads in, but we can see one hasn't loaded in. So we have a little bit of work left to do, but check this out. If we hit next image again, it's going to give us an error. Well, why didn't it give us an error the first time? That's because there was something to remove. We removed that one instance, that one image loader there on stage. Once we've removed it, there's nothing left to remove, so therefore this whole remove child thing is worthless to the button and to Actionscript and Flash, and it's going to throw that error because there's nothing there that is of that name. So it can't do anything with that. We're going to get rid of that line of code, and we're going to put it in at a slightly better place to kind of clean the code up and make it look a little better. So what we want to do is come down here below prevf, the function prevf, and we want to create a new function. Now notice we haven't created an event listener that's going to trigger this function. We're actually going to trigger this function when we want to, up in that if-else statement, or actually right after the if-else statement. We're going to call this reload f, and just a simple open and close parentheses, colon, and the word void, open curly bracket, enter return twice, close curly bracket, and hit the up arrow key. Now, what we need to do in here is we're going to say remove child, img loader. And after that, take our img request. Remember, this is that variable we created right at the beginning. And we're gonna load a new. Whoop, make sure you use URL in all caps. Request, and call a new instance of the URL request class. And we're just gonna type the same exact thing we did before: img num plus .jpg, close parentheses, semicolon. So what this is going to do, well, I'll explain in a minute once we place this bit of code up here in the next f function. It's going to make a lot of sense. Just keep typing with me. Then we're going to say img loader dot load. We did all this already. Dot load, and we're going to load that img request. All right, just like we did earlier. And last but not least, we need to add that child, which is img loader. And our whole centering thing is going to keep working. It's going to automatically go ahead and load because we're still dealing with img loader. Remember, we attached this event listener to the content loader info of img loader. So it's going to automatically keep working. What we've done here is we've created this function we can reuse. And we're going to reuse it right here after this if-else statement. This is the if-else statement right before the last curly bracket. All right, you just want to hit enter return. So now we have our curly bracket for the else statement right there. And then here, this curly bracket goes to our whole function. All right, so we're right here just before the function ends, and we're just going to type reload f, open and close parentheses, semicolon. That is going to trigger this function to happen. So why did we do it this way instead of what we did before? Well, number one, we need to reload the image with the new data. So we know that now it should be loading. Well, if it punches up the number 1, it's going to load 2.jpg. But we wanted to simply use our if-else statement to get us a number. That's all the if-else statement is doing. It's just getting a number. It's checking to see what if img num is less than, or excuse me, is less than imgs or imgs. Okay, it's checking to make sure that that's less than the total number of images we've specified. And if it is, it's just going to take img num and make it equal to 1 more than it is right now. Okay, and once Flash has that updated number, it can go ahead and trigger this function, which is going to take that updated number and load that URL right down here using img loader. So let's try it out, all right? If you're still wondering what's going on, or if it's still really complicated, we're simply updating the img num right here, and then we're telling it to reload right down here. Let's check it out. Save your document, enter or return to test it out. No errors, that's a good thing. We're going to hit next image. And check it out, we have a new image. Let's hit next again, another new image. And notice these images are automatically being centered. All right, great. And then right back to image number 1. See, we get to image number 7, And here, that if-else statement saying, you know, hey, this is no longer less than IMGs, so make it equal to 1. Bam, it's going to load 1.jpg. Great, we've done that. All we have left to do is basically flip this around to go down here into prev f. All right, so we're going to say if imgnum is greater than 1, all right, so basically if we're off of image 1, if we're not on 1.jpg, because there's always going to be at least one image, we want imgnum to lose a number. We want imgnum to go back one, so we're going to say minus minus instead of plus plus, minus minus, semicolon. And then right after this, we're going to say else, open curly bracket, enter return twice, close curly bracket. Inside of the else statement, we're going to say imgnum equals imgs, or the total number of images we have. So here's another place where we're targeting this. So if your image number is equal to 1, imgnum is going to equal the total number of images. What does that mean? Well, imgnum is going to equal 1 once the first image has loaded. And if the first image is loaded, the image before it is actually going to be image number 7. So that would be the image that would load next. Last thing we need to do is after the if-else statement, we need to just simply type reload f, open and close parentheses, semicolon, to make sure we trigger this function again to just sort of reload. Save it. Let's test it out. All right, we're here on image 1. Let's go previous image. Bam, it loads image 7. Next image, bam, loads image 1. Loads image 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can go previous, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, back to 7, back to 1. So it all works just the way it should, and all of these images are being loaded from right here. All of these images. These are the images we're loading right into Flash. And this will work the same way on or off the web. You just need to make sure that you specify the location of the images correctly. If you have these images within an images folder, this might look something like this. You might have to put a second string here and say images, images slash plus imgnum plus that .jpg ending. So that is that, and that would be if I had all these images right here in this folder, but inside of another folder called images. Say I were to create another a folder, drag all these images into it. That's what you would do. You just specify, hey, they're in a folder called images, grab that dynamic number, add the .jpg to the end, and go ahead and load her up. So that's how you do it. That's all of the code. I hope you've learned something. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for sticking around. It's taken a little while to get through this, but we got through it all right. And you now have a very basic base gallery upon which we're going to build, and we're going to make it look nice, and we're going to do all kinds of cool stuff to it as long as I get my stuff together and I really focus on this and make it happen. So that's it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Go check out the site. That's www.tutvid.com for more great video tutorials. Thanks for watching.